Good day, everyone. Today, we will be discussing the lesson The Philippines as Century Hands. So in this lesson, we'll tackle the three of the brilliant writings of Jose Rizal, which are living proof that the pen is mightier than the sword. The lesson consists of subtopics. So the first subtopic is causes of miseries, second, results forecast, third, challenges that confront the Filipinos, fourth, other related writings, fifth, letter to the young women of Malolos, number 6, the responsibilities of Filipino mothers to their children, and lastly, qualities mothers have to possess. After this lesson, we are hopeful that you will be enlightened to the difference between those writings and its importance. So first, let's dive into the learning outcomes of this lesson. So at the end of the lesson, students will be able to number 1, assess results writings, number 2, evaluated the value of understanding the past, and third, frame arguments based on evidence. So the first writing that we will be discovering is The Philippines as Century Hands. This writing is an essay type and it is all about the predictions of Rizal to the Philippines within 100 years. Kani nga writing is iyang original nga name kay Filipinas dentro de 100 años or the Philippines within 100 years. I-publish ni siya sa La Solidaridad of Madrid o niya sa iyang suwat nag-reflect ang iyang mga thoughts and opinions about sa past sa Pilipinas, ang pagka-distract sa economy o gi-expose po niya ang mga hinungdan sa suffering sa mga native Filipino. And most importantly, he warns Spain about the end of their domination in our country, which is a reminder ni niya about sa nahitabo sa French Revolution. Kay diba, during sa time sa French Revolution, na ay mga changes sa political conditions and other countries nga na slave is nag-revolution sila against sa ilang oppressor. So, maoni gipasabot ni Rizal. Usa pod sa purpose ni Rizal nga nung gisuwat niya kay para ma-promote ang sense of nationalism sa mga Filipinos para ma-awaken ang ilang minds to fight for their rights. Next is let's go to the causes of miseries. So the essay started by analyzing the various causes of the desolations suffered by the Filipino people as enumerated in The Philippines as Century Hands, summary and analysis. First is the Spain's implementation of her military laws. So during the time when Spain enforced its military laws in the Philippines, there were negative consequences. One of these was a significant decrease in the Philippine population. Poverty is more widespread and it affects many people. Ang mga farmlands kay gipasagdaan maong nahimong unproductive. The family, which is an important part of society, was also disregarded. So overall, every aspect of Filipino life was hindered or slowed down. This means that ang mga policies nga gipatuman sa Espanya nagdaog daotang epekto sa mga tao ug sa progress sa atong country. Second is deterioration and disappearance of Filipino indigenous culture. So diba na namatay kagalingon culture before niabot ang Spain. So paabot nila with the sword and cross, naganaman og kawala ang native Philippine culture o gipulihan sa Spanish culture. Because of this, the Filipinos started losing their confidence in their past and their heritage, became doubtful of their present lifestyle, and eventually lost hope in the future and the preservation of their race. Then the result, ang mga natives began to forget kung kinsa sila, their valued beliefs, religion, songs, poetry, and other forms of customs and traditions because napulihan naman sa Spain. Next is number 3, passivity and submissiveness to the Spanish colonizers. So usas naka-influence sa culture silence sa mga Filipino is tungod sa mga friars kay diba gipadak-an man ang religion during that time. So ilang gigamit ang name sa Ginoo para ang mga Filipinos mo submit nila or mutuman sa kung unsa ilang gusto. Then question arises as to what had awakened the hearts and opened the minds of the Filipino people with regards to their plight. So eventually, the natives realized that such oppression in their society by foreign colonizers must no longer be tolerated. At last, nakarealize ra gyud ang mga Filipinos. So one question that Rizal fosters in this essay is whether or not Spain can indeed inhibit the growth and development of the Philippines. Despite the abuses, corruption, and deterioration brought by the colonizers, Rizal was optimistic that there will still be progress for the motherland eventually. For this, he made the following arguments. Number 1, keeping the people uneducated and ignorant had failed. National consciousness had still awakened and great Filipino minds still emerged from the rubble. So ang gipasabot ani ni Rizal is sila mga ilustrado nga naka-eskwela sa laing nasod, which is na-expose sila sa democracy of freedom, then ilang na-compare diri sa ato. Ug mga Filipino pareha nilang Bonifacio nga aware sila nga ang gipangbuhat sa mga Spanish is dili maayo. So second is keeping the people impoverished also came to no avail. On the contrary, living a life of eternal destitution had allowed the Filipinos to act on the desire for a change in their way of life. They began to explore other horizons through which they could move towards progress. So tungod sa kalisod sa pagpakabuhi sa mga Filipino, instead of mo give up sila, kabaliktaran noon, mauna no hinungdan nga nung naglihok sila para moabot or ma-achieve na to ang freedom. And the third one is exterminating the people as an alternative to hindering progress did not work either. The Filipino race was able to survive amidst wars and famine and became even more numerous after such catastrophes. To wipe out the nation altogether would require the sacrifice of thousands of Spanish soldiers, and this is something Spain would not allow. So Rizal concluded therefore that Spain had no means to stop the progress of the country. What needs to be done is to change her colonial policies so that they would suit the Philippine society and to the rising nationalism of the people. So to wrap it up, Rizal's essay, Filipinas dentro de 100 años, or the Philippines within 100 years, aimed to predict the future of the country and express Rizal's thoughts and on the glorious past of the Philippines, the decline of the Philippine economy, and the suffering of native Filipinos under Spanish rule. Rizal cautioned Spain about the disastrous consequences of its dominance and highlighted the significant impact that events like the French Revolution could have on the Philippine Islands. The essay identified several causes of the hardships faced by the Filipino people, including Spain's enforcement of military laws, the erosion of Filipino indigenous culture, and a submissive attitude towards Spanish colonizers. Rizal believed that change was possible as the Filipinos became aware of their circumstances and yearned for a better life. He argued that attempts to keep the people uneducated, impoverished, or eliminate them completely would not impede progress. Rizal concluded that Spain needed to modify its colonial policies to align with the Philippine society and the growing sense of nationalism among the people.
Rizal's forecast. If we say forecast, it means nga prediction para sa future or pwedeng mahitabo. Sa essay ni Rizal nga The Philippines a Century Hence, iyang giswat iyang mga prediction about the future of the Philippines. What will become of the Philippines within a century? Will they continue to be a Spanish colony? Spain was able to colonize the Philippines for 300 years because the Filipinos remained faithful during this time, giving up their liberty and independence, sometimes stunned by the attractive promises or by the friendship offered by the noble and generous people of Spain. Abi manggod sa mga Filipino sa una nga, mga buutan ang mga Spaniards nga maadyo ilang tudyo sa Philippines o gusto lang nila tabangan o protektahan ang Pinas. But they got it wrong. Lahi naman dahil jud ang tudyo sa mga Kastila. They are in the Philippines to colonize the country. They become the exploiters and executors of the Filipino people. Murtag gikulong og gialipo sa saka o galingon natong bayan. Instead of Filipinos to lead the country, it was the Spaniards. Ang mas malala pa, they use their power para i-torture, alipustahin, at tapak-tapakan dara ang mga Filipinos. Mura sila they own the country na, and we Filipinos are just their slaves. So, if this state of affair continues, what will become of the Philippines within a century? Sa essay ni Rizal, iyang gisuwat or gi-answer to nga questions nga, the people will start to awaken, and if the government of Spain does not change its acts, a revolution will occur. Pero, unsa man jud di ay ang gusto sa mga Pinoy sa una? First, a Filipino representative in the Spanish Cortes, and freedom of expression to cry out against all the abuses. Gusto nilang nasa representative para naapoy mag-serve as voices nila. And second is to practice their human rights. And if this happens, the Philippines will remain a colony of Spain, but with more laws and greater liberty. So to make it simple, Filipinos want to be independent, but still under the Spanish rule. Note that Rizal only wanted liberty from Spaniards and not total separation. Remember nga, Rizal only wants to have peaceful negotiation with the Spanish government since dili siya gusto gubot og kanang mga pag-aalsa. But bisag nga na iyang gusto or like perspectives about the issue, he still prophesied na gyud nga Filipinos will raise a revolution. Rizal was confident as he envisioned the awakening of the hearts and opening of the minds of the Filipino people regarding their plight. He prophesied that the Philippines will be successful in its revolution against Spain, winning their independence sooner or later. Bisa pagkuwang ilang mga armas o they still lack in combat skills, Filipinos took courage to fight and waged a war against the Spaniards, hoping for their independence from the cruel hands of the colonizers. And in 1898, the Americans wrestled with Spain to win the Philippines, diba? After makalaya sa Spanish hands, colonized na putas mga Americans din sa mga Japanese po. Years after Rizal's death, the Philippines attained its long-awaited freedom. A compilation of what he had written in the essay, history does not record in its archives any lasting domination by one people over another of different races, of diverse usages and customs, of opposite and divergent ideas, and one of the two had to yield and succumb. Sakto jud iyang mga predictions ni Rizal nga Filipinos will be free from foreign rule. His essay, The Philippines, A Century Hence, alongside with his novels No Limitangere and El Filibusterismo, shows the importance of strengthening the backbone of our country, which are our values, mindsets, and all the beliefs that had shaped our sense of national identity. The essay, The Philippines, A Century Hence, also served as a reminder nga kitang mga Filipino are historically persevering and strong-minded. Di ba bisig unsa kalisod ug murag impossible nga makahawa tas kalpitan sa mga foreign rule, wala jud na wala ang pag-asa sa mga Pinoy. They fought and fought with independence in their mind. They did not give up to give the Filipinos or our country as a whole kung unsay dapat nga atoa. Kadtong mga kagustuhan sa mga Spaniards nga dapat uneducated and impoverished lang ang mga Pinoy is na-fail sila. Kay nilaban naman jud ang mga Pinoy sa ilang rights para di na tadaog-daogon sa atong kaugalingong bansa. Nationalism eventually thrived and many of the predictions of Rizal came true. The country became independent after 3 centuries of abusive Spanish rule and 5 decades under the Americans. Now let's move on to the challenges that confront the Filipinos. The question now lies on whether or not we Filipinos are truly independent. Are we really free when there is continuing control of our economy by an elite oligarchy, not to mention the widening gap between the rich and the poor? To quote Rizal in his El Filibusterismo, who said, "Why independence if the slaves today become the tyrants of tomorrow?" With this question, makauna-una ta, did we really achieve the freedom and independence that we aim to have? Kung tanaw na to sa atong current state, di ba dagay kaharap nga issue atong country? First, sa family. Since sila ang basic unit sa atong community, ana jud mag-start sa ilaha ang pag-instill og values sa mga bata. But most families fail to do that. Some Filipino families may not be effectively passing on a sense of national responsibility and pride. Second is ang issue sa atong educational system. Schools are supposed to teach not just academic subjects, but also social values and national identity. But the educational system in the Philippines falls shortly in nurturing patriotism and civic consciousness. And another issue is sa atuang political leaders. 'Di ba? Political leaders should inspire and unite the people. Pero some Filipino leaders fails to effectively promote national unity and social cohesion. A number of analysts have pointed out some flaws in our national character that hinder our desired vision, such as competitiveness. These include mindsets like lack of appreciation of importance of adhering to the rule of law and maintaining high standards of excellence. Prevailing attitudes like pwede na or bahala na only foster mediocrity in a global setting where attributes of precision and critical thinking are needed. Sa sig pwede na, bahala na nato, nagpakita ng tag-incompetency and that we are okay sa mga mediocre nga butang. In this way, dili ta makasabay sa global setting. As stated by Braid 2017 in her article, The Creeping Autocracy and Our Inability to Exercise Full Control Over Our National Sovereignty require public awareness, courage, and a strong sense of national identity. The Philippines struggles with a weak national identity and social fragmentation. This makes it hard for the government to connect with the people and solve problems like poverty and violence. We haven't used technology effectively to bridge these gaps and promote unity. The author, Braid, believes Filipinos need to be more courageous and take responsibility for creating a more peaceful and a just society. Now, what can you do for the country as a Filipino youth? As a Filipino youth, there are several ways you can contribute to our country's development. Maybe through education, active citizenship, advocacy, innovation and entrepreneurship, cultural preservation, environmental stewardship, empowerment of marginalized groups, technology and digital literacy, promotion of peace and unity, personal development, and many more. So, for you, what would you do?
Apart from Rizal's essay on the Philippines a century hence, he had also penned several other brilliant writings that helped awaken the sense of patriotism among the early Filipinos, which paved the way for Philippine Revolution, and we will discuss briefly the two other timeless writings, Sobre la indolencia de los Filipinos, or in English, The Indolence of the Filipinos. This is said to be the longest essay written by Rizal, which was published in five installments in, in the La Solaridad from July 15 to September 15, 1890. The essay was described as a defense against the Spaniards who charged that the Filipinos are inherently lazy or indolent. The indolence of Filipinos is said to be a study of the causes why the people did not, as was said, work hard during the Spanish regime. Rizal pointed out that long before the coming of the Spaniards, the Filipinos were industrious and hardworking. The Spanish reign brought about a decline in economic activities because of the following causes. First, the establishment of the galleon trade cut off all previous association of the Philippines with other countries in Asia and the Middle East. As a result, business was only conducted with Spain through Mexico. Because of this, the small businesses and handicraft industries that flourished during the pre-Spanish period gradually disappeared. Second, Spain also extinguished the natives' love of work because of the implementation of forced labor. Because of the wars between Spain and other countries in Europe, as well as the Muslim in Mindanao, Filipinos were compelled to work in shipyards, roads, and other public works, abandoning agriculture, industry, and commerce. Third, Spain did not protect the people against foreign invaders and pirates. With no harm, with no arms to defend themselves, the natives were killed, their houses burned, and their lands destroyed. As a result of this, the Filipinos were forced to become nomads, lost interest in cultivating their lands or in rebuilding the industries that were shut down, and simply become submissive to the mercy of God. Fourth, there was a crooked system of education. If it was to be considered an education, what was being taught in the schools were repetitive prayers and other things that could not be used by the students to lead the country to progress. There were no courses in agriculture, industry, etc., which were badly needed by the Philippines during those times. Fifth, the Spanish rulers were a bad example of despise manual labor. The official reported to work at noon and left early, all the while doing nothing in the line with their duties. The women were seen constantly followed by servants who who dressed them and fanned them, personal things which they ought to have done for themselves. 6. 6. Gambling was established and widely propagated during those times. Almost every day there were cockfights, and during feast days, the government officials and friars were the first to engage in all sorts of bets and gambles. 7. There was a crooked system of religion. The friars taught the native Filipinos that it was easier for a poor man to enter heaven, and so they preferred not to work and remain poor so that they could easily enter heaven after they died. Rizal admitted that the Filipinos did not work so hard because they were wise enough to adjust themselves to the warm tropical climate. An hour's work under that burning sun, in the midst of pernicious influences springing from nature and activity, is equal to a day's labor in a temperature climate. He explained, violent work is not good thing in tropical countries, as it would be parallel to death, destruction, annihilation. It can clearly be deduced from the writing that the cause of the indolence attributed to our race is Spain. When the Filipinos wanted to study and learn, there were no schools, and if there were any, they lacked sufficient resources and did not present more useful knowledge. When the Filipinos wanted to establish their businesses, there was not enough capital nor protection from the government. When the Filipinos tried to cultivate their lands and establish various industries, they were made up they were made to pay enormous taxes and were exploited by the foreign rulers. However, it is also important to note that the indolence of the Filipinos did not only stem from the many factors related to Spanish colonizers. There are, however, other factors attributable to the Filipinos themselves, and these are the following. One, the feeling of inferiority is very much prevalent among the Filipinos. This paralyzes all possibilities for growth and development, giving the Filipinos a tendency to give up without exerting extra effort. And two, with the antiquity of epics and legends in the country, the Filipinos have the propensity to place all hopes on miracles. This is seen among the Filipinos who lead a contemplative and lazy life while giving money to the church in the hope of miracles and wonderful future ahead. Third, the Filipinos have developed a lack of spirit to pursue lofty purposes. Since we have been conditioned as an inferior race, Filipinos opt to conform to routine activities up to the point that they no longer aspire to become greater individuals. There is a lack of sentiment among many of us. Instead of being proud of what the country has achieved, we sometimes tend to focus more on the negative situation. As Rizal put it, a man in the Philippines is only an individual. He is not a member of a nation. In conclusion to his essay, Rizal emphasized on the need for good education and, and liberty as the main solution to achieving progress in the Philippines and in solving the problem of indolence.
Hi everyone, I am Marca Idoloso, and now let's continue the discussion. So next is the letter to the young woman of Malolos. So Jose Rizal's legacy to Filipino women is embodied in his famous essay entitled To the Young Woman of Malolos, where he addresses all kinds of women mothers, wives, the unmarried, etc., and expresses everything that he wishes them to keep in mind. So, the essay by Jose Rizal entitled To the Young Woman of Malolos serves as a call for women to liberate themselves from cultural constraints and embrace empowerment. On December 12, 1888, naay grupo sa mga kababayenan nga ga-ask og permission to Governor General Weyler to open a night school to study Spanish under Tudor Sandico. Then gibabagan ni Father Felipe Garcia nga usa ka parish priest sa Malolos. Pero kay kini mga baji kay di man nagigipalupig, wala jud sila ni undang og panghangjo, mao nga doon na sad sila ni Governor Whaler to ask a permission again to open a night school. So in the end, the request was granted. Pero naay kondisyon nga si Senyorita Guadalupe Reyes ang mahimong teacher. So tungod sa isog sa mga kababayanan sa una to fight their rights para raman makaeskwela sila, ni-request si Marcelo H. Del Pilar ni Rizal to write a letter to praise this young woman. So on February 22, 1889, Rizal composed this letter when he was in London, and it's originally written in Tagalog in response to the request of Del Pilar. So, sayod ta nga sa una ang mga babae is walay karapatan makaeskwela. Tungod kay ilang pagtanaw sa mga babae sa una is nabawra jud kaayo. Ilang perspective sa mga babae is dapat naarjo sila sa bahay to take care of the home and their children. So, dili ka pwede mo eskwela or manarbaho. So, the letter to the young woman of Malolos by Jose Rizal is a powerful call for the empowerment and education of women. Its main aims include advocating for equal opportunities in education, challenging traditional gender roles, and praising the courage of the women of Malolos in standing up for their rights. So mao niya ang unom ka points nga makita nato sa letter nga gigama ni Rizal to the young woman of Malolos. So first is the rejection of the spiritual authority of the friars. Not all of the priests in the country that time embodied the true spirit of Christ and his church. Most of them were corrupted by worldly desires and used worldly methods to effect change and force discipline among the people. Second is the defense of private judgment. Third is Filipino mothers need to possess, as evidenced by this portion of his letter. Rizal is greatly concerned of the welfare of the Filipino children and homes they grow up in. Fourth is duties and responsibilities of Filipino mothers to their children. Then the fifth one is duties and responsibilities of a wife to her husband. Rizal states in this portion of his letter how Filipino women ought to be as wives in order to preserve the identity of their race. And lastly is counsel to young women on their choice of a lifetime partner. So to summarize these outlined points from Jose Rizal's letter, collectively emphasize his critique of corrupt spiritual authority, advocacy for individual judgment, and a deep concern for the well-being of Filipino families. Rizal addresses not only the duties of Filipino mothers and wives, but also provides guidance to young women in choosing lifetime partners. Rizal's perspectives provides a call for societal transformation and the preservation of Filipino identity through informed individual choices and moral responsibilities. Next is the responsibilities of Filipino mothers to their children. So ani nga portion is gi-emphasize ni Rizal kung unsa ka importante ang role sa usa ka inahan in shaping the character and future of their children. He underscores the idea that a mother's action, particularly concerning submission to authority figures, profoundly influence the behavior and values of her offspring. So kung giunsa sa usa ka inahan pagdumala or kung unsa ijang mga gipakita or pagtrato sa ijang mga anak, either maadyo ba ni or dili, mao sad ni ilang maadapt pohon. Next is the qualities of the mothers have to possess. So Rizal enumerates the qualities Filipino mothers have to possess. First, be a noble wife. That woman must be decent and dignified, submissive, tender, and loving to their respective husband. So Rizal expected wives to be respectful, loving, and supportive of their husbands. Second is rear her children in the service of the state. Here Rizal gives reference to the women of Sparta who embody this quality. Mothers should teach their children to love God, country, and fellow men. So it means that mothers should raise their children to be God fearing, patriotic, and kind. Then, lastly, is set standards of behavior for men around her three things that a wife must instill in the mind of her husband. First is activity and industry. Next is noble behavior, and lastly is worthy sentiments. And as much as the wife is the partner of her husband's heart and misfortune, Rizal stressed on the following advices to a married woman: aid her husband, share his perils, refrain from causing him worry, and sweeten his moments of affliction. So it means that a wife's behavior can influence her husband. Rizal advised them to encourage hard work, good morals, and noble ideals in their spouses. So, in short, Rizal saw mothers as the foundation of strong families and a good society. Next is Rizal's advice to unmarried men and women. So Sir Rizal points out to unmarried women that they should not be easily taken by appearance and looks because they can be very deceiving. Instead, they should take heed of men's firmness of character and lofty ideas. And this advice to unmarried men and women, Jose Rizal highlights the importance of looking beyond mere appearances and being cautious of deceptive impressions. So, gi-encourage niya ang mga babae to prioritize a man's strong character and noble ideas over superficial qualities. So, dili lang kay mag-focus ra ka sa iyang physical appearance. So, Rizal further adds that there are three things that a young woman must look for a man she intends to be her husband. The first is a noble and honored name. Second, a manly heart. Then lastly, a high spirit and capable of being satisfied with engendering slaves. So in this option, Rizal advises unmarried women to value traits like character, integrity, courage, and ambition when choosing a partner, emphasizing the significance of these qualities over superficial looks. So, as I mentioned earlier, nga dapat dili jud ka mag-focus sa physical appearance o sa katawo. So for example, kani kay gwapo. So sukto ni naho. Without knowing nga bidya daytog batasan. So the essence of his advice is to prioritize inner qualities for meaningful and enduring relationships. In summary, Rizal's letter to the young woman of Malolos centers around five major points. So first is Filipino mothers should teach their children love of God, country, and fellow men. Second, Filipino mothers should be glad and honored like Spartan mothers to offer their sons in defense of their country. Third, Filipino women should know how to protect their dignity and honor. Fourth, Filipino women should educate themselves aside from retaining their good racial values. Then lastly, faith is not merely. So in recent times, it seems that these qualities are gradually lost in the way Filipino women conduct themselves. So makita nato sa pagkakaroon nga kaning mga qualities nga dapat unta sundon sa mga kababayenan, ilabi na sa mga inahan is nagkaanam-anam nagkahanaw. So there are often times moments where mothers forget their rules in rearing their children because of the overriding idea of having to earn for the family to supplement their husband's income. So naiuban nga mga inahan nga mas gi-priority nila ang mga pagpanarbaho to sustain a better life. Although there's nothing negative about working hard for the welfare of the family, but there must be a balance in the way people go through life. The message strongly emphasizes the importance of maintaining balance. Failure in the home cannot be compensated for by any amount of wealth or fame. It means that despite the pursuit of financial success, neglecting essential family roles cannot be compensated for by wealth or fame. So money and fame can't fix what's broken in the family. So dili ka bayran sa salapi or unsa man ka kasikat diha kung unsa ang mga nabuhat nimo nga daotan or pagkuha nga makaapekto og maayo sa imong pamilya. And that's all for this chapter, and we hope that you gain something from our report. Thank you for your time and God bless us all.